Well, frankly, initially part of my strategy was to sell off a lot of the gold once we went into the new currency. And you wouldn't be relatively slightly ahead from where you started because you have the gold that holds all of your purchasing power as the rest of all of the other assets implode. So you'd actually be, even sitting on that gold, you would be a whole lot more wealthy and then able to convert it as you needed it, because the shenanigans that central banks and governments will do with currencies, it's not going to be over just because they reset the currency. So, you would not be only slightly ahead, you would be so far ahead, but it isn't just the gold. If you go back to that top part, it is having that gold to then convert into other undervalued assets.
Right.
And
that
income
key is
production.
The timing, right?
Correct.
The timing on selling the gold at the right time and buying the undervalued assets that are coming into that cup formation.
Right. That we want to see that the cup formation is developing before we make that transition, but you'll be able to see it.
Okay.
You'll be able to see it.
All right, so then after the reset, what happens to my pre-reset cash at home? Is it still worth something? If not, in your opinion, should I own more gold than disposable cash for that reason before the reset happens?
Well, you want to there's a certain level of cash that you need to use as your first line of defense. And that's really based upon your current lifestyle. So our consultants can really help you determine what that should actually be. Beyond that, no, because the cash is going to be worth absolutely zero. And it's not far from that now, but it's still most recognized. So there is, if you've got your pre-reset cash at home, that's going to zero, but it is your first line of defense because it's going to be more recognizable initially until people grasp the hyperinflation. Then it doesn't matter and you can use it as, I don't know, toilet paper or something else.
Napkin for an empanada?
A napkin for an empanada, yep.
Okay, so then life returns to normal.
Right.
The plan is to resume accumulating gold for the next financial cycle for the grandchildren and the children and the grandchildren's well-being. Is that right? Am I missing anything? He asks.
Yeah, the foundation of every portfolio always needs to be good money, right? And it's really going to depend on, again, what your personal goals are. You have it for your offspring and their offspring. So there is I personally, as you well know, I like that legacy gold because that is the kind of gold that you just pass down from generation to generation to generation. But the wealth stool, I'm having a little brain thing. It's the dynastic wealth. Thank you. So the dynastic wealth stool, I knew it was in there somewhere, but the dynastic wealth stool actually has 3 legs. It has rare collectibles, really truly rare collectibles. It has real estate and it has gold. You could do all 3 with it, but you do need to be diversified. Is it the time to do that right now? Probably not, because those other things are really overvalued. But ultimately, you want to have a portfolio. Like for me, I want to ensure that I have income for the rest of my life and that my family, when I'm not here anymore, has that foundation of income and wealth. So it isn't just one thing, it's a variety of things. It's that the gold will put you in a position to accumulate those other dynastic wealth assets for your offspring and your offspring's offspring when those, when those are severely undervalued, which they're not right now.
I think what he's asking, though, more specifically is after the reset happens.
Correct.
Then everything's gone back to what we would consider normal. So it's on the other side of the cycle, right?
Right. And we're at the very beginning.
Is then the plan to resume accumulating gold again, right? You accumulated it before the reset, then you sold some of it off, bought the assets
But
undervalued.
the key is some of it, right? So if you have excess, look, as long as the asset is undervalued, you want a strong foundation and real money in your portfolio. So do you want
Regardless,
to,
you're saying.
regardless,
Always have it in there.
absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. So it just kind of depends, but yes, you're always going to need that. So you can resume accumulating when that then becomes a more stable, or it's not going to be undervalued right away. Because remember, they have to put a component of gold into the new currency to generate confidence in that currency and to get the population to use it again. Okay, so presuming legally we're allowed to accumulate, or that you accumulate it in the way that I've accumulated, or that my uncle accumulated it when it was illegal to buy it in any other way, sure, because that's always money and it's your foundation. But you also have a need for income, or you always have to have some income. And it kind of depends on what your personal goals are. I know what mine are, right? And that's what I'm executing. But that's the whole point of the strategy. So everybody's is basically the same, but then it's tweaked based on the goals, the circumstances, what you have to work with, et cetera, et cetera.
It would seem like in
yeah.
the phase of where we are now, that you would need a higher percentage of gold and silver in your portfolio
100%.
than after the reset, right? It would seem like you would need a lower percentage of
Right.
your overall portfolio in that particular category.
Thank you. Yes, because we're going to see, just like the Tesla was brought up in the beginning, what we don't know at this point is who really are zombie companies and who will have the ability to weather this storm. Not all companies are going to go bankrupt, but those that have accumulated unpayable debts, they're very likely to go away in this coming route. So we need to see who's going to survive it, and then you diversify your portfolio. I mean, I'm an ex-stockbroker. I have a high level of comfort with stocks. Do I own any now? Heck no, I don't own any now. But will that be true in the future? Probably not. I mean, that wasn't true in the past. So, chances are pretty good. I'm going to want to own some stocks once all the garbage is burned off and I can see a sound balance sheet, a good management team, and good growth opportunities. So you're exactly right. It's the percentage of your holdings. Right now, I really am all in. I am. I don't own any stocks or bonds or annuities or any of that kind of junk. But I don't think that's always going to be the truth. I mean, I just think that's the way it is now because of where we are in this trend cycle. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. Well, that's where those inflation expectations come in. Because if you think it's only going to go up 2% a year, or you think that the central banks actually have control of it, then you're not going to push forward things that you would buy, right? And so therefore the money velocity is not really showing signs of a spike yet. But once that thought pattern gets fully entrenched, and so then the expectations of inflation are higher, that's when we will see the monetary velocity starting to move up.
Confidence starts to get lost in the currency, which
Exactly.
then has people want to spend it versus hold it.
Thank you. Exactly.
All right.
And after all, Jay Powell took out the transitory, well, maybe we shouldn't be using that term anymore. Yeah. I prefer to buy collectible coins, and that really goes all the way back to my Uncle Al, because
It goes
that
back
was,
further than that. It goes back to 1933 even.
well, it does, but I wasn't born then.
Right, but
So-
the reasoning for it.
Oh, absolutely, is because when they confiscated the bullion from the population, well, then they took it away and you couldn't legally hold it unless it was coins that had special value, rare and unusual, and special value to collectors.
Right.
And, I don't think that it really registered when I was 10 years old. But in case you didn't hear the story, so many of you have, but my Uncle Al was a major antique dealer back east, and he was my favorite uncle, so I was really close with him. And one day, my parents and I were in his home, and he goes, "Come here, I want to show you something." And we go into this back bedroom, and he had 2 tall floor safes, which I didn't really know the capacity then, but, now he had at least 3,000 coins, gold, 1-ounce gold coins. Well, that was 1965, when it was illegal to own more than 5 ounces of gold, and yet he had about 3,000 or maybe even more gold coins in there, and he was holding it legally. Additionally, that was the kind of gold that you could use in the real marketplace to convert into other assets that you wanted to buy, because this was the only legal way to hold the gold. Personally, I do think there will be an overt confiscation, because price manipulation of gold over all these years is a covert manipulation. And it's all about perception management to get you to do what they want you to do, but they want you to volunteer it. So I definitely prefer the collectible coins, the older coins. And then in 61, Kennedy gave that similar boy, I'm having a hard time today. Thank you. See, I'm so glad he's here today, because I don't know why. It was a very long week last week. I guess that I'm not over that yet. But gave a similar status to the foreign gold coins because he wanted to import a whole bunch of them. So I just think, since I do believe that it's highly probable that there is an overt confiscation, I want to hold the kind of gold that is less likely to be confiscated because of eminent domain laws, and there's less than 2% of all of the gold in those pre-33, those collectible coins. So therefore, it's not as easy to confiscate as bullion or bars, but that's really why, because what if I'm right and what if I'm wrong? If I could put myself in a position where it really doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong, that's the position that I want to be in, and that's why I prefer the coins, pre-33s.